clap sync. I used to have a Sigma 30mm f1.4. It was actually my first ever lens and will forever be one of my favorite lenses. However, for some personal reasons, I needed to sell it. Again, not because it wasn't good enough or anything, but purely because of some personal reasons. The funny thing is, a few months after, I find myself longing for a 30mm prime lens. It's my favorite focal length, by the way. Hence, in this video, I'm gonna share 5 reasons why I decided to go for the Sony 35mm instead of going back to the Sigma 30mm. Before anything else, I'd like to officially welcome you to my channel. Thank you for making it past the intro. If you're into cameras, gadgets, technologies, all that good stuff, please do subscribe and hit that bell. In that case, you won't miss out on anything from this channel. Having that out of the way, let's dive right into the topic. There are actually 3 minor reasons and 2 major reasons. Of course, I'll start with the minor reasons to save the best for last. And para magstay na rin kayo hanggang dulo. Reason number 1. The Sony 35mm is very compact. I love how small and how lightweight it is. Like, I find it very convenient carrying this in pretty much all occasions. Just for comparison, it is significantly smaller than the Sigma 56mm, which is the smallest of the Sigma trio. It is that portable. One thing I don't like about it is it being glossy. How I wish it's a bit more matte to complement the finish of the Sony A6400. Nevertheless, with all the features and whatnot in this tiny body, I couldn't be happier. Reason number 2. The Sony 35mm has a very realistic and natural field of view. If you'll remember, I mentioned in one of my videos that the Sigma 30mm is like the right choice among the Sigma trio. It's not too wide, not too tight. And that is because the 30mm or 45mm in an APS-C body is the closest field of view to what the human eyes actually see. Hence, the same goes for the Sony 35mm. I love how versatile this lens is for both indoors and outdoors. In addition to that, I find this lens useful in my talking head videos. As a matter of fact, I am currently shooting this on the Sony 35mm. Like I said, I personally love this focal length. Not too wide, not too tight. Reason number 3. The Sony 35mm has f1.8 maximum aperture. This is like 2 or 3 stops lower than the f1.4 of the Sigma 30mm. But as to how I do things, f1.8 is more than good enough for me. For both photography and videography, this lens performs really well in low light situations, which is perfect for my not so well lit studio. Not just that, the f1.8 aperture is also capable in producing that bokeh effect or that blurry background. Thus, the Sony 35mm is also great for product and portrait photographies. Let me show you some samples. Before we go to the 2 major reasons, if you aren't a subscriber yet, please do now. Yep, go. Yes, that's it. Okay. Alright, your support would mean the world to this channel. Thank you. Going back for the 2 major reasons. Reason number 4. The Sony 35mm doesn't have a good, not even great, but awesome autofocusing system. I've used tons of lenses from different brands already, and I gotta say that there's a reason why it's called a native lens. In my most recent video, I mentioned that the autofocusing system of the Sony A6400 is without a doubt very reliable. Thus, using it with a lens with equally reliable autofocusing system will obviously result to the camera's and lens's maximum potential and performance. I was actually satisfied with the autofocusing system of the Sigma 30mm. In fact, of all the Sigma trio. But when I got to use the Sony 35mm, I must say that as far as autofocusing is concerned, this is straight up the better lens. But do I still experience pulsing and haunting with this lens? Yes, I still do, but not as much with other third-party lenses. Lastly, reason number 5. And this is for me is kind of the deciding factor. The Sony 35mm has OSS, the optical steady shot. This is Sony's version of in-lens stabilization. For photographers, this may not be that big of a deal, but for videographers, it is. Most especially if you don't have a gimbal or something. I know, I get it that if you call yourself a videographer, you must have a gimbal. But say for example me, I am not a professional videographer or filmmaker. I am a simple aspiring content creator based here in the Philippines. That being said, I bring my camera with me 95% of the time. But I don't want to bring other accessories such as a gimbal. Like I said, portability is important to me. Hence, considering that my camera has no in-body image stabilization, having a lens with any form of stabilization is almost like a requirement. Again, that's just me. And believe me, Sony's OSS is amazingly awesome. You like that? Amazing na awesome pa. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the 5 reasons why I decided to go for the Sony 35 instead of going back to the Sigma 30mm. Of course, there are trade-offs such as the image sharpness. The Sigma 30mm is definitely way sharper than the Sony 35mm. But as for me personally, if you would go back to the samples earlier as well, Sony isn't disturbingly soft either, like for real. Also, like I mentioned earlier, the maximum aperture, it's f1.4 versus f1.8. And finally, you have to note that the Sony 35mm is more expensive than the Sigma 30mm. Oh well. Other than that, I am very much happy with the Sony 35mm f1.8 OSS. Again, to be clear, I was happy with the Sigma 30mm before, but I don't regret the switch. There you go, folks. I am sure I wasn't able to cover everything, so let us continue the discussion in the comment section, or we can connect on Instagram or on Facebook. As I end, if you're getting a thing or two from this video, please do like and subscribe to my channel for more not super technical, but rather practical approach to gadgets and technologies. Until then, thank you for watching. Like, I find it very convenient carrying this in pretty much all of If you'll remember, I mentioned in one of my videos that the this is like 2 or 3 stops lower than the f1.4 of the Sigma Trio. Tama. Thus, the Sony 35mm is also great. Thus, the Sony 35mm is also great for product and portrait photography. Anyway. Thus, the Sony 35mm is also great for product and... What? Yes! Oh! No! Okay, portrait photography. Okay naman na. Sample, yan. Okay, but do I still experience What? This is Sony's version of in-lens. But I don't want to bring any other accessory with me. But as for me personally, if you... And finally, you have to know that the Sony... Lupet!